everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. Today, we are diving into something that touches almost every woman we know in midlife, and that is movement. Not just the kind that sort of where you lace up your sneakers and head out for a run, which is lovely, but honestly, more importantly, really how we move through the world now. Those physical shifts, the energy changes, the sort of this feels different than it used to reality. And, we're recording this right after coming off our Brave and Boundless retreat. And I think, our retreats, we really notice even a shift over the course of a weekend.
Well, yes, and not to mention that we had temperature issues and we had like a whole room full of women going, this is hot.
Right.
There was that too. Yeah, because we're talking about what it actually takes to stay motivated in this season of life, and we're not talking about the glossy version. We're not talking about a not glossy version either, right? Like it's just the one that involves caregiving. Some people are caregiving for their parents. In my case, I'm caregiving for my adult child. And also, like, there's perimenopause, there's menopause, there's fatigue, there's injuries, because a lot of people who have been athletic have had injuries. And there's mornings where, like, if you're like me, that your joints aren't fully awake yet.
Mornings, every time I sit for too long, by the time I get done with this pod, my joints won't be working.
Like you've got to put on a sports bra so complicated that feels like cardio. So it's just the kind of conversation where like the stakes feel higher and more personal, but also more grounded, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, as we always say, this isn't about getting it perfect. It's about laughing at yourself a little, being honest. I mean, again, we just got done with the retreat, and I had more than one time where I'd stand up from a table that you and I were sitting at and be like, "Okay, can't quite move yet," and it's frustrating because I just got my hip replaced 18 months ago, and the minute that pain went away, I realized how stiff my knees are. Yeah, I mean, it does look different for different women. I certainly know women our age who are still training for marathons and ultra marathons. Some of us hurt ourselves walking the dog, like, and some of us are stretching in the morning, some are stretching at night. It's whatever works for you.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think movement isn't about fitting into someone else's version of what's healthy anymore. I think for so long, because of time, if nothing else, we were like, sign up for this class, or I should be doing XYZ, or at
Yep.
least yoga or something like that. And then you get to a certain age where you find out, well, your connective tissue is a little too sensitive. You shouldn't do yoga, or you're too hyperextended. And we're like, what? There's all these new words that it used to just be like get yourself to something or get yourself out the door, and now we're like, oh, I can't because of this in my joint, but if I'm committed to it, I'm going to find something. So yeah, I think it's about keeping our energy alive, our hearts steady, and our connection to ourselves strong. And obviously the best way to do that is by laughing at your creaky knees. Oh my god, it remind me to tell you about taking a pole dancing class for my friend's birthday when I was 40. And I was like, can you turn up the music so you don't hear my joints creak? um, and fierce strength, all of that in the same breath. I think being strong, being able to say, like, I think I told you I recently did a really vertical hike, and I was like, we're like stubborn, formerly fit people. I know people my age that could do that with no problem. I know people older than me that could do it no problem. My main problem with it was I got dizzy. And I was less sore than I thought I would be. But I'm not even just saying everyone in midlife has the same difficulties. I would just say, even the people who are finding it easy, they're admitting, like, okay, there's things I have to choose, or that, like, running isn't worth it to me anymore because of what it does to this thing in my foot. But, like, so it's about finding what it is that feeds you and the motivation to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree 100%. I think I told this story back on an earlier pod, maybe the one around having my hip replaced. But, I realized about a year and a half before, well, maybe even longer than I think it was in like 2021, um, that like running just wasn't working for me anymore. I've been running for 25 years. I loved it. And part of it was tied to the fact that I was living in LA now, and I spent most of my running life on flat surfaces. And so running hills, I think, really, exasperated the situation. And movement is important for me for mental health. And so I just had to kind of grieve giving up being a runner and figure out a way that felt good and and still get movement in every day. You know, so there, if you have to give up some things, I have other friends who have had to give up different ways that they used to get their movement in, and there is a grieving process around that. But then ultimately, it's being proud of what you can do versus what you can't do, as we always say.
Yeah, and I have a lot of opinions, right? Like they're not even well-informed opinions, but opinions because I had a father who, ran like 11 miles 3 times a week and he was so committed to just keeping his body young and healthy. And my mom stays active in other ways. Like she's always up and down and around her garden. She's always standing in the kitchen. And I think she's realizing now that like it would be better for her to be doing more because just getting in and out of cars is really difficult. And
Mm,
but it's not like she was ever just sitting around. You know what I mean? So like
right.
I think about my former retreat partner that I used to do those yoga retreats with, and she was always like, "Do not think because of your age you can't get in a handstand. Do not think you'll never do a pull up." And I remember listening to her going, "I don't know if I could do those things,"
Yeah,
but
totally.
for sure we did. And so I think there is some just so my opinion is just resist saying, "Oh, I'm too old for dot dot dot," and you know be smart. I'm going to say something kind of stereotypical about men, which may not be fair, but I feel like so many men I know, including my husband, when they want to, go back to feeling fit the way they used to, they go hard and they hurt themselves. And
Yeah.
it's like, be gentle with, and
Yeah.
actually, we actually saw young athletes after COVID go back into sports and there was a ton of injuries because bodies, even young strong bodies need conditioning. They need to build their way there. So I think, I guess my opinion is, resist thinking that you're too old to do that, but also be smart, go into it gradually. It's kind
Yeah,
of,
meet your body where it's at instead of
yeah.
trying to go backwards in time. I mean, it doesn't matter what gender you are, our bodies are changing. And what we could do when we were in high school is probably not what we can do now. You know,
Right.
well, I mean, again,
Right.
I think I've said this story, but one of my biggest injuries I've had in my adult life was after doing cartwheels. What? I did 10, but 11 went poorly for me. So,
How old were you when you did that?
I mean, we're still in Chicago. I was probably early 40s. So
I
again,
mean, in my mind, I can do those, but I bet even doing one, I would hurt myself.
yeah,
I don't know.
my tendons flipped over my sit bone, and I've
Uh,
never been the same. Like I can't sit for long periods of time because that still aches. So
ouch.
my bad.
Well, part of what we want to talk about is motivation, which I struggle with. I struggle with motivation more than you do. You're really good at your habit. And it's because it matters differently now, right? Before the motivation might have been, just to train for something,
Hmm.
hit a milestone, fit into something, like whatever it was, right? Like feel really good at some big event. I think now, because there's clear research about how movement is it's mental health, care for so many people, how it impacts our brains, our mood, and even our ability to handle stress. I mean, that is a clear indicator in my whole little family. Like they all admit that, whenever they're stressed or not handling things well, they realize they haven't been moving enough. They haven't been sweating enough. They haven't been kind of, exerting themselves. In our 20s, a workout might have been how we looked in jeans, or like I said, right? Or like how I want to feel for this race. Now it's about, can we get through a long day with enough energy to still enjoy our lives?
Yeah.
I think research from Harvard Medical School shows that regular physical activity improves mood, cognitive clarity, and resilience to stress in adults over 40. That's kind of duh, but that originally came from research there. Moderate movement is linked to improve executive function and a lower risk of cognitive decline. And we see this in this aging population. More and more retirement communities are really committed to making sure people move every day and get outside for fresh air. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, and I sort of already said this, but for me, the movement is so tied to like I don't drink coffee in the morning, right? So my first thing I do is drink water and do movement. And that's how I wake up. That's how I'm oxygenizing. Is that the right word? Um,
Oxygenating? I don't know.
there you go.
Mm.
One of those two words. And also just like I know it makes me feel mentally better. Now, again, let's talk about when we were at the retreat. We had a particularly long day on our second day. That is always our content heavy day, but we added in this glorious boat ride down the Chicago River. But that meant that was like a 14-hour day for us. And so the next morning, I woke up and thought, I probably really don't need to move. And yet I still got up and did some movement because I just know it's how I start my day out better. I think more clearly. I'm less reactive. My fuse is longer. I definitely have clients who, when they get something in for themselves, whether it's movement or reading or something first thing in the morning, they have a much better day because they're whatever comes at them, they've already taken care of themselves. And I think for me, that is really what this is about. This is important to me. So I feel like I've taken care of myself, even if all I've done is 15 minutes of stretches. Now, when we flew home, that was such an early morning. I was like, nah, I'll be walking through the airports. That's going to be enough for me. But again, this is at this stage of the game has nothing to do with how my body looks, and honestly, just really about how I feel uh, inside mentally. And that is, as somebody who spent 14 years in the diet industry, that was a huge mental shift for me, for sure.
Sure. Well, for sure. And like for us, we want to be around. So it's about longevity. I was telling
Yeah.
Miles, we were just talking early this morning about how he's trying to do less in the gym and more in the climbing gym because he
Nice.
just likes the social activity of doing something fun while he's exercising. And he's like, and I'm up to 8 pull-ups. And I was like, damn. What I remember from Samantha, who's like big time bodybuilder and fitness trainer, is even doing one increases your longevity by like 5 to 10 years. Like people's
Wow.
ability to do a pull up is related to like the immunity, the immune system, and the musculoskeletal system that's really going to help maintain the structure for a longer life. And so I'm like, oh, gotta get back to that. I don't know if I can even do one.
I've never been able to do a
uh,
pull up. So,
because like so I guess my point is like there's something to be said for movement being a form of self-respect, at least for me. It's like, okay,
ooh,
I moved today, like I took care of
yes.
my body, like I'm really valuing this vessel that I'm in.
Yeah,
And we know our bodies better now. We know what happens when we ignore them. And when I say that, I don't really like it. It's kind of like when people are like, oh, women over a certain age shouldn't have short hair. Women over a certain age shouldn't be doing, heavy impact. It's like, screw you, do whatever you want. If you're
right.
60s and like, you know, jumping on a trampoline is good for you. I just had a Pilates instructor tell me like actually older women should do some impact. It's good for their muscles. So
Yeah. And
I
their
think
bones, I
everyone's just
thought.
got to know their body better.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
I do have hyperextension, so I'm not supposed to do hot yoga, even though when I do it, I feel really good at it because I'm hyperextended. I'm not good at it in a way that's like actually good for me.
Right.
But we know what happens when we ignore them. The consequences show up faster. So it's less about being disciplined and more about taking care of something we value. So it's like, okay, I know what helps me be happier and easier to live with. I know it helps me feel stronger. I know it helps me feel less sick if I'm
Hmm.
actually doing it. So this is like bare minimum for me. I
Yeah.
know those things. I still sometimes have trouble connecting and doing them, whereas like you do no matter how you feel.
Yeah. I think, it's funny. Darren and I have this conversation. Gosh, every time I stand up and I'm like, oh, I'm in so much pain. Because, jokingly, as someone who does not get a lot of movement in, he'll be like, well, look at me. I can get up and walk around with no problem. And it's because I don't work out. And I'm always like, and look at me, I'm not on any medication.
Yeah,
So again, Darren has never valued movement. So be it. I mean, I can't even bring a horse to water in that respect.
sure.
And that's fine. But you're right. I mean, as I've already said, it's completely different for me than it used to be. And so for others as well, it could be slower, it could feel more intuitive, more nourishing. That's kind of where I land. If I wake up and I'm sick, I don't get movement in my young life, I would have still forced myself to do that. So I am really trying to listen more intuitively to my body. I do like a good sweat, so that's important to me. I've never been much of a yoga person because of that. But maybe in a few years, that'll be all I can do, that and Pilates. Who knows? Whatever feels good for your body. I've probably said this before too, but I remember so often when I was at Weight Watchers and we would talk about movement, and someone would say, well, what's the best exercises to do? And I said, the one you'll do. Because if you pick something that you don't like, you will never do it. But if you pick, and that is going to shift over time. Some days something's going to feel great, and then you're going to get bored with it and you're going to want to do something else. Totally cool.
Such a good point. I mean, I think for me that, I've talked on here before about how sometimes I've kind of figured out my resistance. Sometimes it's, oh, well, Griffin can't get out, I'm not going to go either. It's not a conscious thought. It's a
Sure.
subconscious solidarity bullshit thing, but because it's like so much better for him and all of us if I get out and move. So I think it's just about showing up for myself.
Yeah.
And for me, sometimes that is a long walk with the dogs. We live in a really pretty area. I can go walk along a ridge and look out at the mountain. Not at my it's not a war-torn city.
What?
And like, I just love it because it's so, what I love is the endorphins from even a walk. And I usually I'm a fast walker, as you know, so like I'm going to break a sweat if I'm out there walking for a while. Or a hike or something. Like, it is just such a great way to remind your body it's alive. Right. And,
Yeah.
I'll always remember that, like, if you're not living, you're dying. Right. So,
Mm.
um, if you're not living, like, how do you know you're living? Like, moving your body, getting air on your face, seeing other people, being in nature, like, that's what makes me feel so alive.
Yeah, I love that. So let's go back to motivation a little bit, right? Because a lot of what we were taught back in the day, a lot of what we were capable of back in the day doesn't work anymore. The sort of just do it or just push through culture isn't built for people holding multiple roles, running unlimited sleep with aches and pains. Mayo Clinic notes that midlife women often experience energy fluctuations that make rigid exercise plans unrealistic. Oh my God, I totally understand that. Like I have 3 or 4 workouts that I do, and I'm doing them all at home now just because I'm tired of the gym at my house, at my apartment, I should say. And so, and I know what days I like to do them on. I kind of have them written out, but I do wake up and I'm like, oh, this part's hurting. I'm not going to do that today. So this idea of it's got to be very set in stone can be unrealistic for us. The American Psychological Association shows that intrinsic motivation, joy, connection, self respect sustains long term habits far better and longer than guilt or appearance goals.
Hmm.
Joy, connection, self respect
Yeah.
sustains long term habits far better than guilt or appearance goals. Love that.
I
Yeah,
do like
snaps.
that. That's a good one to put on a
It
meme.
is. Noted.
um, I think, yeah, when I think about like the messages about discipline and willpower, that used to land for me, when I was
Yeah.
young. I felt like I needed that, right? But they
Yep.
just don't. When your day starts before sunrise, when your hormones are running their own show, right? Their own schedule. I think motivation has to be more compassionate and more strategic. I think for so many people, it's like, how can I combine social and, motivate, like moving? I used to have early morning walks like 3 days a week with a friend. Like early, when we were both pregnant, we would get up at meet at 6. I used to hike with women like twice a week. Those are things I haven't been able to do as much regularly, but I love it when you can combine it, right? Um, I think motivation just has to, it's got to be disconnected from guilt or shoulds. And I am struggling with it sometimes. And I think it's because I lose so much sleep.
Yeah.
But it's not like the motivation isn't there. It's weird. It's just the habits have been a little bit disrupted. The motivation's always there. It's like, oh, I feel it and I want it. I think it's about
Right.
weaving movement into our real lives and not perfect ones. And I think it comes from, although I have always said, and I'm really clear on this, like when I'm coaching, if you get a flat tire, you don't pull over and like slash the other three.
Right.
You
Totally.
get back on the road. So I think I'm just trying to figure out what that is for me, right? Like, cause I don't, it's not, that's not exactly what I do. I don't go, oh, screw it. I missed this morning. I'm going to miss all the mornings this week. It's not that. It's literally like, oh, I didn't get to it. We had a seizure. I got to do this. I'll get to it later. And I'd
Mm,
say that the chances of me getting to it later in the day, they're not nil. I usually do in some way, but it's not going to be in the same, just me kind of me time in the morning the way it was going to be.
right.
It's like I'm going to have to get out the door for 20 minutes and maybe do a jog, that kind of thing.
Which I think you actually are really good. At least, you and I have had plenty of times where we're talking. You're like, okay, I'm going to go, whether it's texting or actually talking. It's like, I'm going to go out and do this real quick, and then I'll come back and work on fill in the blank, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
again, this goes back to not really trying to fit into or re become our 25-year-old version of ourselves. But again, asking what would actually help me feel better today, right? So if you get derailed first thing in the morning, and it's that thing in your, you keep saying, you got to get out, you got to go do it. It really is what would help me feel better. For you, oftentimes, this doesn't work living in downtown LA. Let me just side note that. But for you, yeah, getting out and just taking the dogs for an extra walk or a brisk walk, that could be literally what works for you in that moment. And then you feel like you've done something for yourself. Because I think that's a big part of this. So, again, so many people think that it's not your movement without, if it's not an hour long, then it's not worth it. Lower that bar. 15 minutes, 5 minutes, several times a day, 10-minute walks, um, pairing movement that's feel with something that feels good, like listening to us while you're on a walk. Tressa, that's her big thing. She listens to our podcast when she's out for walks in the morning, talking with a friend, stepping outside to breathe, whatever. Pair the movement with something else so that it becomes easier.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. 'Cause it's really clear when you take the pressure off, it's so much easier. And I think just so often the hardest part isn't actually moving because that's fun and that feels good. It's the mental
Right.
battle of should, when, guilt, and comparison.
Yeah, no question. And so if you can reframe it, motivation starts to feel less like a mountain to climb and more like pulling yourself in, inviting yourself into doing whatever feels good in that moment. Maybe it is mountain climbing, so be it. But if it's not, that's okay too. It might just be, getting up from your desk and walking around the office for 5 minutes. People underestimate how important just not being sedentary all day is. If again, this is taking me back to my Weight Watcher years, but it's like, if you are, and this was a big thing when when Weight Watchers first got its first wearable, which was around the same time like Fitbits came out and so forth. And it was like, what this was meant to do is not make you feel bad about what you aren't doing, but to motivate you to get up every hour and walk around. Go, don't have an email, go talk to somebody, go fill your water bottle up, because that 5 minutes every hour versus taking the train to work, sitting all day at work, taking the train home, then you're tired, so you sit and binge watch television all night, and all of a sudden you realize you haven't moved your body at all. So it's
That's a good point.
little things, they all add up. You do 6 5-minute walks, you've got a 30-minute workout.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. I
Do you have that on your does your watch remind you to get up?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I try to, like, when I'm in line for something, I try to do calf raises. I just don't even give a shit what it looks like anymore because I know like
Oh,
strengthening calves and ankles is like really important for the joint stuff that I run into.
it's funny. I
Um
often am doing that because I'm standing too long, so my knees hurt. So I'll do like butt kicks, like stits. I'm not like butt kicking running, but just like I have to move my knees because if I'm standing on line for too long, I
yeah,
next time I have to move, it's gonna hurt. So yeah, I don't even
that's a
think
good
about it.
point.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I want to talk about too, like I mean, I kind of put you in this category as well, but we also know women who are like in the best shape of their lives in midlife. Some of them got there for the first time you know, in their midlife, which is really cool. I've, you know, a couple friends who've walked the Camino, and
Mm.
another friend and her husband who keep doing these, you know, like these multiple day walks in the Alps, which is just a lot of
Mm.
elevation change and stuff. And so I just want to talk about that because not as a comparison, but also just to say like what we find the majority is like it's not a constant struggle, but it's a topic. It is just we're all really aware of it. If we're seeing our parents age well, we're like that's motivating. If we're seeing it difficult for them to get around, that is motivating.
Yeah.
um I look at my kids and I'm like, okay, these are all the things that are stacked against you genetically. So, you know, make sure you're doing something. You know, like the things that I mean, there's a lot of colon stuff in Brendan's side of the family. There's, you know, like, and Brendan was, you know, on a water polo team and a lifeguard, and he was doing a lot at their age. So I'm always like, you know, we got to be thinking about what it is, what's the very bare minimum you do for your body. But anyway, I just want to talk about women who like, you know, you might be Facebook friends with them, you might be related to them, but they're strong, vibrant, and they're really rewriting this. They almost seem like they're aging in reverse. And I
Mm.
just want to say it's not magic, it's structure. And I think it's because building strength is a priority. For some of them, it's because they've been through some trauma, and it's like just a way that they could control and really take the reins back in their life. And for some, it's just been a lifelong habit. Um, but like they're really committed to things I've been learning about, which is progressive resistance, consistent movement, recovery, sleep, and food that supports what their bodies are doing. And I think that has served you well because you've been through cycles like that, that you've
Yeah.
done that, you've trained for things.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring because it shows what's possible. Right. There's a couple of things here if you want to help me share them. Like there's a report in 2022 from CDC that found that adults over 50 who engage in regular strength training have a 30% lower risk of mobility limitations and a 40% lower risk of early death compared to sedentary peers.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of exactly what I was speaking about. That's
Right.
funny to me because if and I do regular strength training. So what would my mobility limitations look like if I didn't? That's almost frightening. National Institute on Aging shows that muscle mass, bone density, and immune response can be significantly improved and maintained well into the 70s with regular strength training. Yeah, I mean, my mom was somebody who absolutely, used weights most days, as did my dad. Um, I do feel like Charlotte and Darren will get sick and I don't get sick as easily. It's pretty rare that I get an illness, a
It's really
sickness.
rare.
Yeah, and
Both of us. I think
yeah.
it's rare that you and I get sick, but we live with people who get sick a lot.
Well, that's just it. And I think for Charlotte, it's because she's out in the world in a different way because she certainly does movement, but um yeah, I feel like Darren will get a cold and I tend to not get it. It's pretty rare. And I do own that. I do think that's because I'm not great at nutrition. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty weak in that area, but movements I think really props that up for me.
I just have you ever watched the Blue Zones or read anything about it or
I know, yes, I'm familiar with it. I've never watched or read anything, but I'm very familiar with what it is. Yeah.
what? I highly recommend it if you're listening. You don't know this guy. Oh, now I'm gonna totally forget his name. I'm not gonna try because I'll mess it up. But he was working with National Geographic, and noticed he noticed in certain areas of the world that there was not just people living beyond 100, but living really well and really vibrantly, and they were contributing members to their community. So he did a whole study, and there's only one in the United States, but there's like two in kind of that Italy, Greece area. There's Costa Rica. There's part of Japan. I'm not going to remember them all, but there's Blue Zones cookbook out there too. I think like the thing that I came away with besides like community and a little bit of wine, right? Like really good, like plant forward meals, like plant heavy meals, like it's the up and down movement. They're either going up and down like really steep stairs and hills in their village. They're getting up and off the floor. There's a lot of squatting. Like it is definitely like the way they move through the day that's keeping their bodies and their minds vibrant. And because they're engaged, like without just being kind of grandma in the corner, they're engaged in important roles in their communities. And I think, the lessons I take from that is move often, move naturally, feed your body in a way that supports energy, muscle, and immunity. And I think that's the goal, right? If you want to be functional and clear headed and around, not around, but like in pain or hard to get in and out, but like around and enjoying it, I think that's motivating.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. Like I said, we have a gym in our building and it doesn't light me up. So I've stopped going. And of course, during COVID, I created lots of workouts for myself. Going back to the getting up and down piece, though, that's interesting because I learned, right around with my hip that women who can get up off the floor, kind of without sort of pushing themselves up, have more longevity. That there's something about the ability of being able to kind of get yourself up. And I'm not great, but I'm better than I was pre-hip replacement for sure. But I'm very conscious of that because in my workouts I do a lot of stuff that's sort of standing, and then I'll do ab work and stuff on the floor. And I'm really conscious of when I'm rolling over and trying to get back up that I'm using my hands the least amount as possible. It doesn't always work, but yeah, I mean, again, and I certainly know. I have a woman. I have no idea if she listens to us, but she is somebody I knew back at Weight Watchers, back in Chicago. She's probably slightly older than we are, and I am seeing her all of a sudden on socials doing CrossFit and like deadlifting like 150 pounds. So huzzah, right? Like that's fantastic. But the little movements count, right? Stairs instead of elevators when you can. We didn't do this as much. When we were in Chicago for the retreat last year, our room was on 16 and the meeting
Right.
room was on 15. So we
And we
took
use
the
the
stairs a
stairs the whole
lot.
time.
We were on 20 this time, so that wasn't as easy. But carrying groceries instead of grabbing a cart for two items, sitting on the floor and standing up, like I just said. All of those things, small things compound, especially in mid and later life. Do not discount the small movements and what they are actually doing for yourself, for your body.
Yeah. Like dynamic stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think the other thing too is, for women our age, it's not just about muscle tone, but having muscle keeps us steady, right? Like, again, I live in LA, you live in Portland, we're not dealing with ice, so sorry, no pun intended. We're not dealing with water that has turned into ice in 30. Sorry, that just like, whoo, that hit me. Sorry. Um, Anyways, I got through myself there. I remember living in Chicago. I had a trainer who was really, really on me about having good, strong muscle tone and balance. Because if I was walking on the streets and I came across black ice, you could slip and fall. And so that kind of stuff, it supports bone density, it regulates blood sugar. So there are lots of reasons to really try to get consistent movement in, and also, like you said, pay attention to recovery that will help us live long, happy lives.
It's funny the things we talk about now. It's like, when did that happen? When did like the scene shift and we're like talking about bone density and osteoporosis and things like that? Like we've just
Yep.
been like, I'll sleep on your floor. Let's stay out
Yeah,
till
yeah,
6.
yeah.
When did
Totally.
that happen?
That's so funny.
So like for the women who are like keeping this up, thank you, because you're like holding a bar up for me. My hat's off to you. I want to say, you know, expanding what strength looks like for your own longevity is the point. I think it's encouraging to know we don't have to become somebody else. We get
Yeah.
to just like figure out what the bare minimum is to feel good and not feel aging, right? Because
Mm.
that's just a state of mind. We can tuck strength into a normal week and still change how our bodies age.
Yeah, again, most of us, movement that works best, as I said, isn't about maxing out. It's about the things that we love, the things that light us up, the things that bring us joy. Those are the things that will be sustainable, that don't feel like we're punishing ourselves. Hopefully, you
Mm.
even look forward to. So, low impact, like walking, swimming, yoga, strength training, shows strong results for mood, bone health, everything, according to the National Institute of Health.
Mm. I mean, here's the thing. We're saying a lot of the same things, which is, I mean, it can be really liberating to just decide that the way you move throughout your day is the way you move. And
Yeah.
I think if you're conscious of it, you're really using your body a lot more intentionally.
Mm.
I think I think you and I probably, I don't know if we've ever discussed it, but I think we've learned over time like how to like be into the muscles of our feet and our thighs and our lower backs to support everything, right? So it's like even the walking you're doing is you're getting more out of it because you're lighting up more muscles. So I think that's kind of a fun game to play. Like if this is the only, like if I have days where when Griffin's had seizures, it's like okay, the way I move up and down the stairs, I'm gonna I'm gonna skip stairs. I'm gonna do some like push-ups on the counter when I can. Like I'm going to do whatever I can to just make sure that my muscles are activated. The point is there's no wrong way to do it as long as you are like lit up by some sort of movement. That's really all we're talking about here. I think that makes such a difference.
Yeah, that all or nothing mindset that we grew up with, that kept us on like a hamster wheel of guilt and overdoing, right? The knowing that every movement counts is more grounded and certainly more humane.
I know. I mean, and there are days when there's no motivation. I get it. Right now, their life's heavy. It's really,
Yeah.
really heavy. Um, and I think sometimes exhaustion wins, and that's not a moral
Mm.
failure. That's just life, and you're alive and you're paying attention, and it weighs itself down. And if you notice, you're probably holding it all on your body in your body. And so I hate to say, but there's even more reason to shake it off, slough it off, and move it. I think caregiving and stress, economic
Mm.
stress, especially right now, pain, sometimes lack of time if you're having to work two jobs or, hold a bunch of different roles. Um, I think right now we're seeing, ever since COVID, I'm pretty sure that I think Cleveland Clinic was the one that noted that women in midlife experience the highest caregiving loads and lowest personal time of any adult group. And we didn't expect that because I think in midlife we think, okay, our kids are off, right? And I just don't think people expected to have so little downtime, so little social time with which they're carrying out all this in their body, right?
Mm.
So it makes sense that this is coming up. We're noticing it, and that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, and grace matters as it always does, right? If your movement is 10 minutes of stretching before bed or like you just walking outside to breathe, the reality of our lives doesn't have to cancel out movements, but it can shape it. And so maybe the invitation around that is before when you hear that inner critic say you didn't do anything today, maybe take a minute to acknowledge everything you did do. You walked to the train. You uh, had to take laundry up the stairs. You maybe did have to work two jobs, so you're on your feet all day. Like noticing what you are doing instead of criticizing yourself for what you aren't doing.
Yeah. And I think removing shame is everything. If it's a slow day, it's
Yep.
a slow day. That doesn't make it a failure. It's the relationship you have with your body. And I guess because I'm more somebody who like does beat myself up, but like I keep saying, well, you're really good at it. You're really good at it. Like
Yeah.
clearly I'm like, I'm not. There are times when, I mean, we'll share a hotel room. There are times where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get up and move. And I don't. And I just stay there and I'm either on my phone or so there are times when I don't. I mean, yeah, I did get outside a lot when we were in Chicago. I'm really happy I did that. But even then, um, I think looking for what it is for you. Maybe it's not motivation, but maybe it's like I'm going to get myself somewhere where I'm going to have coffee that I love and that's going to make me happy. Something like that. I don't
Yeah.
know. like being kind to yourself and making small little plans that help you move. I'm not sure.
That's actually funny. It makes me think of my friend Susan, who you got to meet last year when we went
Oh
to
yeah.
Chicago. She hates movement, hates it with a red hot passion. So she was, again, a Weight Watcher member of mine, and she would create Pinkberry 5Ks.
That's really cute.
So that she'd have to walk a mile and a half to get the pink berry and a mile and a half to get home. I just thought that was a hoot. And that's it, right? Like what is fun? How can you bring more compassion and joy to what you're doing? When you do, you will be more likely to keep it going. Again, I don't think she listens to the pod, but I'm sure she'd be like, "No, I still hate it." I'm certain of it. I know it. And it is, again, it's not about forcing the motivation, right? Build the conditions where it feels doable. If you really want to get up every morning and get some movement in, but you also love to sleep, I mean, this is so almost cliche, but maybe it's just cliche in my world. Get the gym shoes out, put them by your bed. So the first thing you do is you put the gym shoes on, right? Um, do set yourself up for success, right? Again, Stanford University research highlights that habit stacking, joy-based movement, community increases consistency. Doing more than one thing at once. Walking with a friend like you used to. I remember that. I remember you telling me about how you used to get up and walk with a friend every day. I feel like even when we were first friends, you would talk about going out for a mid-afternoon walk. I mean, you had all
Mhm.
the boys home and stuff. But again, reframing this as self-care, something that is going to make you live a longer, happier life versus punishment, that's just going to make you want to adhere to it.
Yeah, I there's a lot of podcasts that I queue up and a lot of like playlists and stuff that I don't get to always enjoy my around here because other people are listening to their music. So if I save those for, like jogging, walking, hiking, getting out, like walking the dogs, then I'm so motivated because I really want to, get to that.
Yeah.
Like I like something where I left off. And that instead of like putting those on while I cook, putting those on while I do laundry, like instead of like I'll put music on to do those things, but if there's something I really want to get back to, I save it for when I'm doing something alone, and that's kind of how I tricked my time and motivation to get like, okay, can't wait to get to that. And so I think the shift happened when I stopped thinking of movement as, oh, I should do that,
Mm.
and instead started thinking of it as a way to like, oh my God, I feel most like myself when I'm in my body and I'm breathing and I'm sweating, like that. That just always feels really, really good. And it can be really quick. It's just something I fit in. But I think that's just kind of what I have to lean into more. And it is a constant battle because if I lose sleep, I'm just back. I often feel like I'm back at square one. I am not, but I often feel like I am.
Well, and there's another piece, right? Like that whole idea of, oh, I got to start over. No, you don't. You're got to start now, right? Like the guilt and shame are going to be the thief of joy. And if you're not feeling joyful around movement, then you're not going to do it, right? Um, should we jump ahead to our song?
Sure. I didn't even decide one, but
I like Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
that is pretty good.
I mean, honestly, any of these. I want to go with Unstoppable because that is that is the title of our next retreat happening in Palm Springs in February of 2026. Unstoppable, a heroine's journey. Um, but ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough. I mean, how do you
I
go wrong
know.
there?
Both of those, I actually like both of those, and we can have two because it's our pod. I
It's
mean, I
our
like the line like I'll put my armor on, show you how strong I am. Like I think being strong and not the in all the ways that are important right now for this time in our lives is huge and unstoppable. But I love Ain't No Mountain High Enough because it just feels so strong and grounded and like nothing's gonna keep me from you. And I think we feel that way, especially as moms, but as friends and as women. I think I like them both.
Yeah. You actually came up with
I'm
two
not
other ones.
choosing.
Let's just throw them out. Like dog days are over. Just because this lyric is great. Because really, this kind of nails it too. Run fast for your mother, run fast for your father, run fast for your children, for your sisters and brothers. I mean, sometimes, the motivation has to be for others, and there's nothing
It's
wrong for
true.
that. So when you're thinking about longevity, I know lots of people that are like, I move because I want to live a long life and see my children grow up and my grandchildren and so forth and so on. So that's a good one. And then Shake It Out by Florence and the Machine. Again, it's hard to dance with the devil on your back, so shake him off. That just kind of feels right for our times.
It's true. We exercise so we don't go freaking crazy. We
Exactly.
don't lose our ever living minds.
Yep. That's exactly right.
I know it's I've been doing some boxing workout and I'm like punching Nazis.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think I kind of did it when you were out of the room, but I still do Taibo, and I did that
Love
almost
it.
every day in Chicago. And there's both. It's fun from a dancing perspective, but then it's also just like, yeah,
It's like
absolutely punching the shit out of people, metaphorically speaking.
yes, yes.
All right, everyone. Well, that's the things we know for this week. Thanks for listening as always, and we will be back next week.
Bye.